You just crashed your car. Before you call your insurance company, there are things happening in the next few minutes that could affect your claim weeks from now. A photo you forget to take, a witness who drives away, a sentence you say without thinking, a detail you assume the police will document. And by the time the insurance company starts asking questions, some of that evidence may be impossible to recover. So if you're ever involved in a car accident, here are 10 things to do in order to protect yourself, document what happened, and give your insurance claim the strongest factual record possible. And number 5 is one drivers often get wrong. First, forget about insurance for a moment. Check yourself and your passengers for injuries. If someone is injured, there is an immediate danger or emergency assistance is needed. Call 911. Don't step into moving traffic just to inspect your bumper. If the vehicles can be moved and it is safe and appropriate to do so, get out of the flow of traffic. What you're required or permitted to do after a collision can vary by state and circumstances. Your car can be repaired. Your first priority is making sure another collision doesn't turn a bad situation into something much worse. Safety comes before the claim. Next, call the police when appropriate. Even when an accident doesn't look catastrophic, a police or incident report can become useful documentation later. Tell the dispatcher where the collision occurred and whether anyone appears to be injured. Depending on the location and severity of the accident, police may or may not respond to the scene. If they don't, find out whether and how you should file an incident or crash report yourself. If an officer responds, get the officer's name, badge information if available, the agency, and instructions for obtaining the accident report. Don't assume you'll remember everything later. Write it down. That report may become one piece of the factual record your insurer uses when investigating what happened. Now, turn your phone into an evidence tool. Once everyone is safe, this is one of the most valuable things you can do. Take pictures, not 2 pictures. Take enough to document the scene properly. Photograph the damage to your vehicle. Photograph the damage to the other vehicle. Then, step back and capture wider views showing where the vehicles are, if it is safe to do so. Document relevant road conditions, traffic signals or signs, lane markings, debris, skid marks, weather conditions, and the surrounding area. Also photograph the other vehicle's license plate. The reason is simple. Once the cars are moved, debris is cleared, weather changes, and vehicles are repaired, the original scene no longer exists. Your photos preserve what was there. And don't photograph only what you think proves your side. Document the whole scene. Objective evidence is far more useful than a carefully selected version of events. Next, exchange the right information. Exchange necessary information with the other driver. You generally want their name, contact information, insurance company, insurance information, vehicle information, and license plate. Give the information you're legally required to provide as well. But don't start handing over unrelated sensitive personal information. Exactly what drivers are required to exchange can vary by state, so follow the applicable local requirements. And there's another source of evidence people routinely forget. Witnesses. If somebody saw the collision, ask for their name and contact information. Don't assume they'll still be standing there 20 minutes later. Once they leave, you may never find them again. Now we get to number 5. Don't turn the roadside into a courtroom. You're shaken up. The other driver looks at you and says, "You pulled out in front of me." And you instinctively respond, "I'm sorry, I didn't see you." Being polite is fine. But the side of the road is not the place to argue about legal responsibility. Sign statements about fault, promise to pay for somebody else's damage, or speculate about exactly what happened. You don't need to win an argument on the side of the road, and you don't need to decide who was legally responsible. You can simply say, "Let's exchange information and let the insurers and authorities handle the investigation." Stick to observable facts. Don't exaggerate, don't guess, don't accuse. And don't turn a stressful moment into a recorded argument that creates another problem later. Next, write down what happened while it's fresh. After the immediate situation is under control, make your own factual record. Open the Notes app on your phone and record the date, the time, the exact location, the direction you were traveling, weather and road conditions. What happened immediately before the impact, where your vehicle was struck, and anything else you personally observed. Don't try to make it sound persuasive. Make it accurate. Memory changes surprisingly quickly after stressful events. A detailed note written shortly after the collision may be far more useful than trying to reconstruct the event from memory weeks later. Next, don't ignore possible injuries. After an accident, don't treat your insurance claim as more important than your health. If you believe you're injured or need medical attention, seek appropriate medical care. And keep the documentation you're given. Depending on the type of claim, an insurer may request documentation supporting injuries, medical expenses, or other losses. Don't exaggerate symptoms, but don't minimize a genuine medical concern simply because the vehicle damage doesn't look severe. The medical side of a collision and the vehicle damage side of a collision can become separate parts of the overall insurance process. Once the immediate emergency is under control and you've documented what you reasonably can, report the accident to your insurance company. You can usually find claim reporting information on your insurance card, insurer's website, or app. Provide accurate information. If you don't know an answer, say you don't know. Don't fill gaps with guesses. Your insurer will generally open a claim and assign someone to investigate the loss. An adjuster may inspect the vehicle, review the circumstances, speak with people involved, and evaluate the damage. And here's a habit worth starting immediately. Create a folder called Accident Claim. Put everything in it: photos, videos, police information, your claim number, repair estimates, receipts, emails, medical documentation if relevant, and notes from conversations. Because 3 weeks from now, you don't want to be searching through hundreds of photos trying to remember which screenshot belonged to which conversation. Next, understand what your policy actually covers. This is where many drivers discover that having insurance and having coverage for this particular loss are not the same thing. Your insurer will look at what happened and compare it with the coverages you actually purchased. Depending on the situation, that could involve liability coverage, collision coverage, comprehensive coverage, medical-related coverage, uninsured or underinsured motorist coverage, rental reimbursement, or other provisions in your policy. For example, collision coverage generally addresses damage to your vehicle from a collision, subject to your policy's terms and deductible. Comprehensive coverage generally addresses certain non-collision losses, such as theft, hail, fire, flood, or impact with an animal. But the exact coverage depends on your policy and applicable state rules. So when an adjuster tells you something is or isn't covered, ask, which part of my policy applies here? And if something isn't covered, ask, can you show me the relevant policy language or exclusion? That's a much better question than simply asking, why aren't you paying for this? Finally, keep a paper trail until the claim is closed. The accident may last 5 seconds. The claim can last weeks or longer. Keep records throughout the process. When you speak with an adjuster, note the person's name, the date, and what was discussed. Save emails. Keep repair estimates. Keep receipts related to covered expenses you're claiming. Keep copies of documents you submit. If the insurer makes a decision you don't understand, ask for an explanation in writing. And if you disagree with the settlement, don't assume the first answer automatically ends the conversation. Ask questions. Ask for the reasoning behind the decision. Try to resolve the disagreement directly with the insurer. And if the dispute remains unresolved, your state's insurance department may be able to provide information about available complaint or consumer assistance options. So if everything in this video disappears from your memory the moment somebody hits your car, remember this: safety first. Call emergency services when needed. Document the scene. Exchange necessary information. Get witness information. Don't argue about fault. Write down what happened. Address injuries appropriately. Report the accident promptly. Understand the coverage being applied. And keep every important document until the claim is resolved. Because after an accident, your insurance company wasn't standing at the intersection. The claim will be reconstructed from evidence, and the quality of that evidence can matter. A car accident is chaotic. You may have only a few minutes at the scene to collect information that could become important weeks later. You don't need to become an insurance expert on the side of the highway. You just need to stay safe, stay factual, and document what you reasonably can. If this video helped, save it somewhere you can find it again. Because this is the kind of information you want before you ever need it. And subscribe to Fine Print Files for clear explanations of U.S. insurance, claims, coverage, and the fine print that can affect what happens when you file a claim. This video is for general educational purposes only and is not legal, financial, medical, or insurance advice. Accident reporting requirements, insurance laws, policy terms, and claim procedures vary by state, insurer, and individual circumstances. Follow emergency and law enforcement instructions and consult the appropriate licensed professional, insurer, or state authority regarding your specific situation.